The reality is that this is much more complex. This is not going away, and this is going to strike us all, not necessarily militarily, but it's going to affect us all in different ways, just the way COVID did. And I did say, for those of you back in 2019, what's coming, I said, this is going to strike everyone down to what the discussions that are going to go on in your living room behind closed doors, everyone in America, everyone in the world. And this is phase 2 of that process. So make no mistake, folks, NATO is now in a full-blown proxy war with Russia. And the worst thing that Russia did is it gave NATO 8 years from 2014 to 2022 to prepare for an eventual conflict. During those 8 years, while the U.S. was arming Kiev, Moscow had been pushing Ukraine to fulfill the Minsk agreement. It was the main thing. Putin, he lost his patience, because the Minsk agreement, if implemented, would have brought peace to the Donbass region and would have prevented an invasion of Ukraine. So NATO never took the Minsk agreement seriously. They never pushed. The Americans never pushed behind it. They were arming, they were planning, they were getting ready, right? And Ukraine is now the ground zero for the expansion of the U.S.-Russia proxy war. Now, the chart you're looking here is what we call a composite chart, NATO-Russia, Davidson composite chart. So when I look at a chart of a couple, let's say I'm doing a business consultation where we have two parties that are doing business with each other, what we do to get a better idea of what the nature of that relationship is, what the future, what the problems, if it's in a crisis or not, will the marriage survive or not, et cetera, we can take the composite chart, which is combining both charts, and we'll not go into the process. And this is the identity and purpose of the relationship. So there's two parties, and then the relationship, the identity, the purpose, the agenda, the glue, if you will, that draws the two people together, and the narrative and destiny that that relationship will create. So for instance, if you took John Lennon and Paul McCartney, you put them together, making a composite chart, that composite chart would actually be a much more accurate representation of the Beatles. The Beatles would be their destiny, the narrative that would drive their friendship during the formation of the Beatles, during the Beatles, and well after the Beatles. Okay, so now that you get that idea, I took it with NATO. We have the exact time when NATO became official and became operative. We have the time, of course, Russia, the current chart of Russia, post-Soviet Russia, combined them together, and then I projected out the upcoming partial solar eclipse on October 25th, 2022. Note here, that eclipse hits the NATO-Russia Davidson composite horoscope sun. Bang, right on. Right on. You can't, this is a dead-on effect. And note here that this eclipse path is right over all of Europe, Eastern Europe, with the ground zero being where? Right in Ukraine, folks. Right in Ukraine. Look at the eclipse path. You can see it, right? It's almost dead center in, yeah, it's actually pretty much in Ukraine if you look at this path. So you could see this is what it's about. It's about NATO and Russia. NATO and Russia. And yes, it's going to pull in all these other nations, no doubt about that, right? So Ukraine sets off the crisis. And again, for all of you that didn't watch the Fatima prophecy and secrets and the Ukraine-Russia crisis, I suggest you watch it, and I suggest you watch it again because you're going to see how this all ties in. And then when I add the Cayce, and Cayce, for those of you Europeans who don't know, he is the Babe Ruth, Arnold Schwarzenegger, probably arguably the most documented, most accurate psychic in the history of the world, bar none. And when I show and prove out that, clearly demonstrate that, and then talk about what he did predict about Russia and the U.S. right now, you will see how this all ties together. You will see that, right? He makes Nostradamus look like an amateur, trust me. All right. And I'm a big fan of Nostradamus, by the way. So I'm not putting anyone down. I know Nostradamus is still, up in the top 5 of all time, but certainly you got to factor in Cayce. right? So Edgar Cayce is like, certainly he's in the top 3 or the top 5 of all time. All right. So now, while this is all happening in October, right, and we see all of this craziness occurring, we notice that Ukraine crisis kicks in, this superpower struggle. And this is at the time exactly when the Barbell Planetary Cyclic Index is making its total trough. So these are all the events in 2021, right? And I'm sure the list of events in 2022, by the time we get into December, is going to be much longer, much more dramatic than what we saw in 2021 or in 2020. So you have that. On top of that is more of a close-up here for those of you who are new. By the way, Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. Look at how that's playing out. We go from the apex or crest to the trough or bottom. We're going to see a recapitulation of themes. Recapitulation. U.S. airstrikes in Syria, ISIS. What do you think is going to happen in the Middle East? Scottish independence referendum. British devolution, right? We're going to see that erupt again. We're going to see some other things as well. Those are just 3. There was a lot more in 2014. So we're going to take a look in a future GTA where I'm going to look at what's all the things that happened in 2014 and how they connected to 2022 into early 2023, especially when we look at this time that the index bottoms when this eclipse. The eclipse occurs in late October. Then we have the Barbell Planetary Cyclic Index nadir on December 1st, 2022, 10:06 a.m. So this is the horoscope of the time when the index hits its absolute bottom of 462. And we could see here Jupiter, Moon, Jupiter, Neptune triple conjunction. Jupiter's right on the world point. You see the sun in Sagittarius in direct opposition. We see a stellium here. Sun, Venus, Mercury in opposition to Mars. Pluto right near the U.S. Pluto return degree, rising Capricorn on the ascendant. And this is December 1st. Then we have U.S. Pluto return December 28th. This is the 3rd of 3 happening. So that's all happening, coming to a theater near you starting October 25th. U.S. Pluto return. The closer the collapse of an empire, the crazier its laws. Marcus Tullius Cicero. I think that really applies.
To watch the full presentation and more like this on geopolitics, the economy, and world events from an archetypal and mundane astrological perspective, join the Global Transformation Astrology membership. Go to gta.williamstickevers.com. Become a GTA member today.